consider subscribing. I honestly made a very similar video to this, or as this, yesterday, and I guess I probably could just cut a portion of that and make it this video. But I needed to include what John Prosser says here in order to, I guess, solidify the purpose of this video. It's nothing new, but before I continue, let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say about last week's Apple event.
See you later, you little bastard. One absolutely huge feature you may have missed with USB-C coming to iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max is that you can now have incredible video footage. We're talking ProRes 4K at 60 FPS recorded externally to a storage medium of your choice. And that is directly thanks to the transfer speeds of USB-C on the iPhone 15 Pro. You're welcome, professionals who actually use their Pro iPhones to do Pro stuff. Yeah, it's true. Apple definitely mentioned it, right? But they kind of glossed over it. The power of having actually usable physical transfer speeds on iPhone is nothing to scoff at. We just went from USB 2.0 speeds of poop level to USB 3.1, which, if you didn't know, sits at a very respectful 10 gigabits per second. A solid 20 times faster than lightning speeds. Lightning, more like frighteningly slow. Would I rather that the slimy little sailors just put more storage in the phone? Yes. Would I rather that the iPhone 15 Pro starts at 11 terabytes of storage? Also, yes. But giving us the option to record high-quality ProRes video straight onto external storage is a very unlike Apple thing to do. And it's moments like these that we need to praise them and credit them for doing something this good, this pro. And maybe they'll do more stuff like it. This really brings iPhone 15 Pro right comfortably into Pro territory. I mean, I record this show externally. We have the camera over there plugged in to the Ninja 5 right there. And that is also recording in ProRes. At number 4, we have... Hang on. We have a $30 USB-C to Lightning adapter. Okay, so this isn't like a good, in case you missed it, but it is, Apple really appled it up here and is trying to sell you bullshit again, but we're not gonna let them get away with it. That's what this is.
I'm not the hero you deserve. I'm the hero you need.
Regardless, they definitely did not talk about this goofy little adapter. Like, could you imagine Tim Cook going up and being like, okay, so here you can plug in all your old shit, and guess what? That's $30. F you.
All right. So there are a few things that he said, and there's one thing in particular that he didn't say, but he showed, and it was pulled directly from the keynote. So the first thing is praising Apple for finally putting a port with a respectable amount of speed on the iPhone. Now, I think what I don't remember. I might not have, he might have said it and I didn't capture it, but for those of you who don't know, the same physical port is being placed on the regular iPhone 15, and we're talking about USB-C here, but that physical port is only going to be able to transfer data at USB 2.0 speeds. So that's 480 megabits per second, which is correct. It is a 20th the speed of what's going on the iPhone 15 Pros, which will transfer data at 10 gigabits per second. So that is, I think, something that we need to firmly establish, that the physical port is different than the logical standard. The physical port is what we see. The logical standard is all of the underlying, I'll say, firmwares and softwares and things like that, that the developers or the hardware vendors or whoever decide to actually implement. Case in point, that physical port can have USB 2 speeds, can have USB 3.1, 3.2, 4 USB 4 speeds, can be a Thunderbolt port, Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, Thunderbolt 5 is right around the corner. Those ports can be USB whatever, 3 or 4. Well, let's say those ports can be USB 3 and support video out. They can be USB 3 and not support video out. They can be USB-C ports and only allow for charging. They can be USB-C ports and allow for video in and out, data in and out, and not charge the device. So there are so many variations that the physical port can allow through it. So I think that should be clear enough that USB-C is just a piece of hardware. Everything else that we really talk about is what's going through said physical port. So he mentioned that we should praise them for finally doing this. And I could not disagree more. Not because I'm some type of Apple hater, because that's not true. I'm using this MacBook Pro right here. But because, and he pointed it out to me, well, to the world, because I didn't know. I have never owned an iPad Pro. But he pointed out the fact, and let me find my open tab up here. Where is it? Where is it? So he pointed out, and we're comparing different iPads, and we might stay on this page for a little while. But right here in the middle, the iPad Pro that came out in 2017, so 6 years ago, he pointed out that even though it had a lightning connector, it was capable of transferring data at USB 3 speeds. Now, I'm going to assume that those USB 3 speeds are the 5 gigabits per second, not the 10 gigabits that we now have on the iPhone 15 Pro. But even that 5 gigabits per second is still a very respectable amount of throughput when it comes to data transfers. And for the longest, I know I did, and I'm sure other people did too as well, thought that the lightning connector was hardware limited to USB 2 speeds, which is why the iPhone never got it. But no, we're seeing, and if I had an old iPad laying around, like I said, I never purchased one, but if I had this iPad Pro that came out 6 years ago, I would definitely test it to see, hey, am I capable of transferring stuff off of this device at respectable speeds? And there's no reason for GSM Arena to be lying right now, but that's going to show, or that this is showing, that Apple could have kept, and well, Apple did keep the Lightning port on the iPhone, and they could have decided to put USB 3 speeds on the iPhone this entire time, but they chose not to. Yeah, they flat out chose not to. And everything he's saying and everything other people are saying about, oh, well, yeah, this is great for professionals, they could have done this a long time ago. And if I may, please stay with me. We're talking about professional level devices. And before I forget, let me just throw it out there. He's talking about, he wishes that, and it's not just him, it's other people too. Yeah, we all wish that the iPhone came with more internal storage at that lower, at a respectable price. You know what a sensible solution is to expanding one's storage without having to either have something externally or having to pay to upgrade? SD cards. Yes, the iPhone has never had an SD card, but that's a respectable way to, an affordable way to increase one's storage. Yes, I know it's not external, and the ability to hot swap those cards, and they're kind of small, you might lose. So yeah, I get that it might be somewhat problematic, but if that's something that Apple wanted to do, or if that's something that I guess were somewhat feasible, it definitely could have worked. I mean, with cameras, full-size cameras, and mine is, actually, it's right here. Yeah, like I have my little camera here that I'll use regularly. Yeah, there's a full-size SD card. Am I saying put a full-size SD card in the iPhone? No. Could it fit? Probably. Would it look good? They can make it work. But I'm not saying that's the solution, but it seems like that could be something that would help the consumer while making this a pro device. I get, like I said, I see that he and then other people have external storage and things. Yeah, I get it. But as I said, they could have done this a long time ago. Yeah, forget the SD cards. They could have given this to the iPhone a long time ago. It's almost like Apple cares more about the iPad than they do the iPhone. But it's really just, well, not as many people are buying iPads. So we'll advance it faster, and we'll keep the iPad held back. We have the iPad mini right here. I've owned several of these. Every time I own one, I just can't get with it. So I either sell them or get rid of them, whatever way. And it needs to be known that the iPad mini charges via USB-C. And I'm scrolling, and I'm sorry if you hear the little scroll wheel clicking on the mouse. But for charging and expansion. All right. USB-C with support for charging, DisplayPort, USB 3.1 Gen 1, up to 5 gigabits per second. I hope you see that this is exactly what he's trying to praise. He and other, I'm not trying to point him out, but he and other people are praising Apple for putting USB-C and USB 3.1 Gen 2 10 gigabits on the iPhone, when this iPad mini, which came out 2 years ago, and is also not a pro level device, already has it. Yes, I get it. Yes, I know it's 5 gigabits, not 10 gigabits. But the whole premise of what other people are trying to say, oh, we should give Apple credit for finally putting this on the phone. They've done it already on the iPad. So let's remember, and I'll probably repeat myself a few times, the iPad Pro that came out in 2017 already had USB 3 speeds. All right. And every iPad Pro from then on, had USB-C on it after that first iPad, I believe. And with that USB-C port, had USB 3 or faster speeds until Apple decided to put a Thunderbolt port on the bottom of that thing. So definitely showing progress with the iPad Pro. Got that covered. But then the iPad mini comes around, and we got USB 3.1 Gen 1 speeds on this non-pro device that came out 2 years ago. So it exists. I'm sure if somebody wanted to connect some type of external storage to it, they could. And this is a non-pro device. All right, so iPad mini is already where, from 2 years ago, is already where the current iPhone 15 Pro. Let's move on to the next item. We have the iPad Air. Unfortunately, I didn't find everything that I wanted to, and somebody out there has the answer. I know that they do. But here we have the most recent iPad Air. And we scroll down. Sorry again if you hear the clicking sound in the background. Keep scrolling. Charging and expansion. So we got this little section right here. USB-C port with support for charging, DisplayPort, USB 3.1 Gen 2, up to 10 gigabits per second. And I hope that sounds familiar, because that's the exact same thing that is now on the iPhone 15 Pro. This iPad Air, which came out last year, so a year old, not an old device, but it has the exact same capabilities through that USB-C port that the iPhone 15 Pro has. As we know, this iPad Air is not a pro level device. As I mentioned before, there is an iPad Pro, which in the realm of iPads is the pro level device, hence the name. So again, why are we praising Apple for doing something on the phone that they've long since done on the iPad? Yeah, I know it's not the phone. Yeah, I get it. And the cameras aren't as good, whatever. Which, now that I'm mentioning the cameras, like, that even further makes it more ridiculous that, yes, Apple spends a lot of time and research developing and making and doing whatever, like the phones on the iPhone, and then on these iPads, they're not that good. I've never used an iPad camera to do anything, but they put the good cameras on the phones that have the slow ports, but then they expect you to do a bunch of stuff with the phone, knowing that it's going to take you forever to get the information off the phone. And then finally, which I didn't say it at the beginning of the video, but the truth of the matter is, the only reason the port came to the phone is because the European Union forced them to do it. So we can't praise Apple, one, for put the port on the phone, because they should have done it a long time ago, because they've done it with the iPad. Two, we can't praise them for the speed that they're putting through just the pro level device, because it's a speed that, one, isn't new. USB 3 has been around since 2008. Two, they aren't putting it on the regular iPhone 15. And three, that speed is on non-pro iPads. And by no means should we be praising Apple for that. The other thing, which was shown in the video, and John Prosser didn't mention it, but if I include a clip, maybe I will here, but the gentleman in the actual keynote says that these USB 3.1 Gen 2 speeds are possible because they put a special controller in the A17 Pro. Completely unnecessary. All right, completely unnecessary. So let me come back up here to another one of my tabs. And I should have just left it alone, but I didn't. Let's go to the iPhone 13. So with the iPhone 13 that came out not last year, but the year before, what's important to know is that the iPhone 13, and I always misplace it with my eyes. There it is. The iPhone 13 has the Apple A15 Bionic, but the iPad mini from 2 years ago also has the A15 Bionic. How did I misplace it that fast? There it is. All right. So they both have the same chip. We can agree upon that they both have the same Apple A15 Bionic. And if we scroll down, why does the iPad mini get USB-C with USB 3 speeds, but the iPhone sticks with the Lightning port with USB 2 speeds? So they either put the same controller in the in that version of the A15, or, which I'm betting, that special controller does not need to be physically on the chip in whatever way that Apple is touting that it needs to be there. Because now they'll say, oh well, and I didn't think too much about it, but it's true. I was listening to or watching Snazzy Labs that what they're going to do next year, and I've kind of said this too, that they needed a way to differentiate the physical chip in the Pro device from the chip in the regular device. And next year, they're going to have the A17 Bionic, which is different from this year's A17 Pro, but that A17 Bionic is not going to have the little USB 3 controller in it. So next year's iPhone 16 regular will still have USB 2.0 speeds because they'll just pull it out. But what we can see right here with the iPhone 13 and the iPad mini, that they both have the same chip, but one has USB 2 speeds and one has USB 3 speeds. Whatever they're touting in with what they've done with this new iPhone and with this new A17 Pro was unnecessary. So anything else that I need to say? No, because I think all these tabs up here are kind of just saying a bunch of the same stuff. So in summary, no, we should not praise Apple for anything. First and foremost, the port on the phone is only there because the government told them they had to do it. Second, the speeds that we're getting only from the Pro device are speeds that iPads have long since had. Third, they've constructed this new chip that is going to appear to be a good thing, but it's only going to end up further screwing people who choose to not get the Pro level device. So in closing, I just hit those three main points, and no, I'm gonna keep watching John Prosser. Yeah, Front Page Tech is freaking hilarious. But as I said towards the beginning, he was the one that pointed out the fact that the iPad Pro from 6 years ago has a USB 3 Lightning port on it. I thought about going back and trying to find that exact video, but I watched all of them, so the progress for all of them, was to the end. So I don't remember which one it was. So I wasn't going to go back and watch all of his videos. But yeah, he pointed it out. So there is no reason to give Apple any credit for giving us close to the bare minimum. And I'm sorry, there is one more thing I wanted to show. Looking at what is capable through the USB-C port. Again, USB-C is just a physical port. Here are logical standards that are capable over said port. So right now, the base iPhone 15, the regular guy, is going to be all the way down here in terms of throughput. All right. The Pro device is going to get this 10 gigabit per second option right here. USB 4 minimum requirement, 20 gigabits per second, with all these additional optional options. Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 minimum requirement, 40 gigs. Thunderbolt 5, which isn't out yet, 80 gigs. I did see, and I thought this too for that video John process. I think like the number one comment was, oh, the Pro should have gotten USB 4 and the regular should have gotten USB 3. Yeah, that's definitely a suitable possibility, an optimistic possibility. But and with Apple, you have to just fall back into, ugh. And that's even what John is doing. He's just like, oh, well, thanks for, doing something. I mean, you could have done nothing, but the government forced you to do it. So thanks, I guess. But I would have said, hey, give the Pro 10 gigabits per second. Give the regulars 5 gigabits per second. Throughout their portfolio, whether it's between iPhone and iPad, we see that USB 3 by no means is a pro level feature. And their other product category, the iPad, as I've said ad nauseum now, USB 3 is not a pro level feature. Heck, with all my other phones that I have that are non-iPhones, modern ones, with the exception of my ZenFone 9, which I was pissed about the ZenFone 9 having USB 2 speeds, but with all my other Android devices, they all have some version of USB 3 on them. And I don't have the Pixel 7 Pro. I don't have the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. I have just the regular Pixel 7. I have the regular S23. I had the S22. I had the Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6a USB 3. Don't quote me on that 6a. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's USB 3. Like, I just don't think companies are in the business of keeping USB 2 around if they don't absolutely have to. But Apple chooses to do so. And yeah, I just wanted to give a visual of, well, okay, thanks for giving us 10 gigabits per second, but by the standard of what is actually available, it's actually slow. Yes, it's faster, way faster than USB 2, but even within the realm of USB 3, we can see that, it's only half of what you could have given us. And then if we do bump it up to USB 4 possibilities, it's what? A 10th? A 12th of what is possible? Not saying that 120 gigs per second is something that we actually need. No, we don't need that at all on a phone. But we could have gotten 40. Could have gotten 40 gigs. So yeah, I definitely have beaten this with a dead horse. And I meant to make this video the same day I think that I saw John Prost's video, because he said, oh, we should praise them. Absolutely not. We should not praise them at all. And I've said that several times too. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to stretch, and then I'm going to stop talking. All right.